Okay, let's sit down for a second and count how many times we have abandoned a new habit that we wanted to develop. I mean, this is experience that every single human being is going through at some point. We want a certain habit to stick and it just refuses to, despite us really wanting it. And what happens often is that we blame ourselves for being too soft and, not sticking to the habits. Not being disciplined enough, basically. I saw a lot of videos on YouTube on how, for example, organize your environment to keep yourself motivated, and other tips and tricks on how to make a habit stick. But today, I want to give you something different. Because what often happens when you try to follow these advices, for example, you want to exercise more, textbook. You buy a membership subscription to a gym that you like. You try doing small steps every single day. You organize your place at home to do workouts. You book time in the calendar for that. There are many amazing tips and techniques that would make it easier for you to exercise. But what happens with many of us is that when for some reason we couldn't keep up to a schedule that we imagined for ourselves, we're feeling really demotivated. And in this example, we could stop exercising at all because you're just not disciplined enough. Let's stop right here for a second and discuss this word. Because every time we hear about making something a habit, here it is. Discipline. I myself have been raised in the culture of discipline, I would say. I wasn't the most disciplined child personally, but from the very young age, we all have been familiar with the concept of, buckle up and do it. And to be honest, it always felt a little bit weird for me because from my observation, this approach kind of took away the enjoyment of the experience. One of the examples of that for me was a musical school. I went to a musical school as a child. I can sing, I can play piano, and it was a mandatory weekly exercise for me for many, many years. I genuinely liked piano and it wasn't bothering me that much. Also maybe because I did not plan to associate my career with it. But I have been observing a lot of people who plan to, for example, study piano or any other musical instrument or singing even after the musical school. So they practically plan to make it their career. Let me tell you, no one is hating music as much as a person who studied it in the university in Russia. Because they push you to be disciplined, to train all the technicalities to the extent that you don't enjoy actually playing music. That's why this hardcore approach of you need to be very, very disciplined, it kind of felt a little bit hypocritical for me from the very young age. Because I saw people who kind of did this and they didn't look really happy. So, although I of course understand a value of being disciplined and being able to continue doing something even if you may be not enjoying it at the moment, I kind of felt that the way how people around me used it was unnecessarily harsh. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that, especially if we recall certain experience when we were kids. We're all people. The environment around us changes all the time and we need to change our behavior. It's inevitable, which means that it's absolutely normal and logical for us to develop new habits to change our behavior. We are adaptive creatures, this is what we do. Also, quite often, certain behaviors that we have been developed as children doesn't really serve us when we're adults. And in order to change that, we need to practice new behavior. We need to develop new habits, new ways of reacting. Now, how do we do this if everything is so black and white? Either you go all in, you're doing everything right, you're disciplined, you're doing it, or if you cannot keep up, you feel so demotivated, then you're just ready to stop this once and forever. Now, here's the deal. When we really want for a new behavior to stick, we increase the stakes in our mind. Winning feels like the most important thing, and every single fail feels fatal. So in the example, because we wanted to exercise so hard, when we skipped our gym just this one time, it feels like a failure. It feels like we're not disciplined. It feels like we're unable to keep up. That's it. You're a failure as a person. So this is where we need to introduce the power of almost. Let me explain you what's so magical about the simple word. Every time you decide that you want to adopt a habit, in your mind you set an intention. And the way we set it, the way we formulate it in our minds is really important. The trick is not to set these intentions in a harsh way. And I'm not talking about if, for example, you want to go to a gym 3 times a week, decide that you want to go just 1 time a week. No. I'm talking about going to a gym 3 times a week, almost every week. Can you see the difference? It does not lower the expectation that you have from your behavior, but it contains a forgiveness in advance in case you won't be able to do this every single time. Because if you don't add this almost, your brain will evaluate the results in a black and white manner. I think sometimes when we want to go, all in with a certain habits, we think that the fact that this failure is so huge and the stakes are so high would motivate us more, would help us to keep up with the new behavior. But here's the truth, it actually rarely does. But what it does, it backlashes you. Because every time you fail to do a certain thing one single time, it feels like a catastrophe. It feels like the end of the world. So if you really want to stick to a habit, if you really want to change your behavior, don't be so hard on yourself. Because if you do that, especially from the very beginning, there is a chance that it won't be sustainable. You won't be able to sustain this behavior. Now, what are we going to do if our brain already kind of trained to look at it in a black and white mode? I will give you my recent real life example. I recently realized that I stay at home a little bit more often than I would like to, and I want to increase the physical activity in my day. But it doesn't matter if I was active 6 days a week. One day of just chilling at home would be enough for me to feel like I'm not doing good enough, to feel like I failed the exercise of, being more physically active. Can you see where is the problem at that? The problem is it's simply not true, because my brain is creating this drama. It makes the reality look in my mind even worse than it is. So the solution to that would be to get more objective in how we actually look at our progress. In my example, I started wearing the watch that tracks how many steps am I doing every day. And instead of looking at the daily progress, I decided that I will look at weekly progress. Because my goal is not to be physically active every day. My goal is to be physically active almost every day. And because I don't look at the statistic of the day, I look at the statistics of the week. I give this forgiveness to myself. If 1 or 2 days during the week is less active, that's absolutely fine until I get my weekly average score. And every time I will have a particularly lazy day, I won't be blaming or punishing myself for being too lazy. Because I look at the app, I look at the real numbers, and I look at my real progress. And this is how I remind my brain about the actual reality. I prove to myself that there is nothing to freak out about. And in the long run, it helps me to sustain this behavior better, because I know that I'm actually doing a good job. Because even how I think about it contains the word almost every day, almost every week. And I think this aspect is kind of not discussed enough, especially in all these productivity videos that rather encourage you to, go for it. So I suggest when you develop a new behavior, be forgiving to yourself. It will carry you further than being intense and harsh. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this more gentle and forgiving approach would help you to actually sustain any behaviors that you want to develop in your life. If you like this content, leave a comment. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye!